Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Doug Reynolds is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out his first appearances on episode 532 and episode 670 of Boundless Body Radio. Doug Reynolds, MHP, is the founder and CEO of LowCarbUSA and the founder and president of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. A software engineer by training, Doug's journey into the world of metabolic health is as compelling as it is transformative. Reflecting on his life, Doug realized that every decision, experience, and challenge, both good and bad, prepared him to seize the moment when the opportunity to create these groundbreaking organizations arose. What began as a personal story evolved into a mission to educate and inspire. Through his work, Doug explores the power of nutrition and lifestyle changes to reverse and even prevent the chronic metabolic conditions that affect so many people today, often without the need for pharmaceuticals. In his new and amazing book, The Road to Metabolic Health, Doug shares his remarkable journey while providing readers with practical insights and reliable resources from his two websites, empowering them to take control of their health and transform their lives. You can find Doug on his primary website at www.lowcarbusa.com. Doug Reynolds, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Thanks, Casey. It's .org, not .com.
.org.
So someone actually looked it up the other day. It's still for sale. They're still trying to sell it to me for some outrageous amount of money.
I'm sure it's absolutely outrageous.
So it's .org.
Oh man. So I was just in my head like congratulating myself on getting through the entire introduction without goofing up anything. I didn't stumble on any words, which is very, very rare for me, until the very last thing that I said was the wrong website. So I'll make sure we get that corrected. So thank you for correcting me on that. Man, just checking up on you in Texas. I have to say, very interesting year. It looks like my friends in Texas have had to shovel more snow than I have had to shovel here in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's nuts. Did you get snow as far south as you were?
No, Corpus, we don't see snow.
Okay.
I think it snowed like back in 1901 or something like that. But yeah, it doesn't snow here. But if, a few hours up the road in Dallas, they getting buried. So
yeah, it looks like our mutual friend Robin Dobbins in the Dallas area had to shovel like 5 or 6 inches or something. I've had to shovel a half an inch like 2 times this year. So we're not getting very much snow in the valley here. It seems like your state is getting more than we are. So yeah, I just wanted to check up. I figured you were too far south to get any of the white stuff where you are. So that's good.
No. Yeah. Last year while we were in Boca, in fact, they had a big freeze. Like it went below freezing here, and everyone was freaking out, and the plants all died, and our neighbors actually came across and wrapped our outside taps for us with rags and stuff like that to try and prevent, getting the water in the pipes frozen or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still, even then, didn't snow. And so
Got it. Okay, got it. Well, it's 20 degrees right now here. I'm freezing, so it's pretty nice where you are. I'm very, very jealous.
For sure.
Oh man. So as we mentioned in the introduction, you have a new book. I have no idea how Doug Reynolds, of all people, found time to write a book. You have so much going on all the time between the conferences and all the work you do with the Society for Metabolic Health Practitioners. Like, how were you able to also write a book in that time? That's amazing.
I actually don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I think that's the real truth of it. I've been thinking about writing a book for a long time, and I've always thought about all these things that happened to me in my life, like literally sitting there, how I was a software engineer sitting doing this and teaching doctors and medical practitioners about carbohydrate reduction, like how did that even happen? And I always felt like everything that I've been through, especially all the failures and stuff, kind of positioned me to be in the right space at the right time when this opportunity kind of presented itself to actually pull the trigger and make a decision to move forward with it. I talk about the whole story about being on the phone with Gary Taubes and getting him to eventually agree to come speak at our first event, and that really being his agreement to do that was the trigger to say, okay, like now I better start building a website and a social media presence and all the stuff we didn't have to try and put on an event. It was, and again, how did, at that point when it was 6 months to go to when we planned to put the event on. Why didn't I plan it for a year and a half from then and not 6 months? I don't know. But the Game Changer Publishing CEO actually contacted me through Twitter, through X, a little while back, and said, like, looking at all the stuff you do, don't you think you want to write a book? And it was like, yeah, I do, but I think I even found from 2018, I've actually got a Word document. I forget what I even had as a preliminary title at that stage, and I had like one sentence typed in there, and and that was the end of my attempt to write a book. But I'd been thinking about it. So when she suggested it, I said, "Oh, what does it involve?" And I think their whole process is not about, it is about helping you to produce the book, and not about gouging you on the revenues. So they charge you an upfront fee to produce the book, and that's it. So they don't garnish the revenues at all. And they've got this process, and they said they can produce a book in 90 days.
Wow.
And I mean, if it's like something like Gary Taubes or something with all this research and all of that stuff that he's documenting, then that is never going to happen. He would have to have had at least a rough manuscript going before they could maybe work from there and get it out in 90 days.
Wow.
But mine was more like a memoir, it's just like my life and how everything that I went through and how that led up to me making the decision to start this, and how it qualified me to provided me with all the tools to be able to actually make this successful. So yeah, that was, and she came to me before Brainerd, like just after San Diego, and we had agreed to put on another one-day event in Brainerd Lakes, which again, like, what was I thinking? Because for one day, it's pretty much as much effort to put it on as for a 4-day event.
Right.
The only difference is now you've got fewer speakers that you like herding that bunch of cats, But outside of that, everything else is just the same work. The contracting and all the websites and all that other stuff. And so I was busy trying to do that. And she was saying, like, you really need to, you've got this event coming up in January, like, we really need to be launching the book there. And I just said, please just leave me alone. I've got to finish this Brainerd thing. But like the day I got back from Brainerd, I contacted them and said, okay, now I'm ready. And so they looked up, and it worked out from that day. It was 90 days was the 22nd of January, which is when we're launching.
Wow.
And but Pam was really unhappy. She thought these guys were shysters, and that they were going to lose all this money that we were putting in to try and produce this book, and that, like, we've got all this planning to do for Boca. Like, what are you doing? And I just felt like I wanted to use this as a way to get out beyond our sphere of influence, outside of our bubble, Been trying to come up with an idea for 10 years about how to do that. And it occurred to me that if I can make this a successful launch, then people will get exposed to this as suggestions and stuff to them through Amazon that would never have even, or that don't know that we exist. And so that would be brilliant, because that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And it was just, I just really wanted to do it. But I said to her, look, I promise you I won't kill myself. if it doesn't look like we're going to make it, then we'll just accept that we're going to launch after Boca and just do it that way. But she laughs about it now. She says, like, I knew you weren't going to do that you would kill yourself. And when it got to the point when I found out, I thought that we would be able to like submit it to Amazon like the day before on the 21st, and turns out if you're not like literally 30 days before, the process needs to start going. The manuscript needs to be finished and formatted and everything. And so that meant the 22nd of December was the deadline. And that was 11 days. So this was about the 11th of December that I find this out. And like we had just done all the recordings and all the stuff and the transcripts that came from that, and eventually produced a manuscript, and the manuscript was terrible. Because it was really rough draft. It was me doing these recordings and going blank and not being able to retrieve words because of this TBI thing and everything. And so the initial manuscript was terrible. And I started trying to fix it. And I literally worked 15 hours a day for that 11 days to
Wow.
get it done. And planning for Boca suffered immensely. And I would start working at 5 a.m. until like 5 p.m, and then have dinner and chat a bit with Pam and watch something on TV, maybe until 7, and then I would work until 10, and then I would go to bed, like every day.
Wow.
And like Pam was saying, like, I told you you're gonna kill yourself. But not on top of that, came to like the last 3 days, and I ended up roping her into help. So for 3 full days, the last 3 days, we were going through it one final time with a lot of suggestions from her about things that she didn't understand what I was saying. And, being a South African and describing that life, what I was saying made sense to me, but she said, as an American, that like doesn't mean anything. So she helped a lot with that to sort that out. And we were sitting like literally next door offices on the same document, and I was working in a different place. And every time she found something she wanted to change, she would yell, and I would go and find the place where she was, and we would like rewrite that bit together, and then I would go back to what I was doing. So yeah, for 3 days, and on top of that, the Game Changer publishing editors that were helping with the editing wanted to be finished by the Friday before the Monday when it was due, so they didn't have to work on the weekend. And I wrote to them and said, dudes, sorry, I know it's a weekend before Christmas, but we're working. And so they actually got stuck in and helped. Sarah Rice helped me in those last few days. And Sunday night, I basically just like stood to Pam like, am I gonna? I really am gonna pull the trigger and send it. But
Wow.
yeah, it was the next day. I then had to start trying to put Boca back on the rails again.
Wow.
Pam had been doing a lot while I was busy, which helped. But in the end, Boca's on the rails, and it's going to happen, and we survived. But yeah, I don't know why I made these. This is not the first time, and I don't know. I don't know why I made that decision, but
Wow.
it was so important for me that I finally found a way to get out beyond our sphere of influence, that I think that was the driving force behind
Wow.
trying to insist that I got it out,
Yeah, that's amazing. Good for you.
next week.
Yeah. I'm just thinking while you're explaining all that, it's a good thing you're ketogenic, because otherwise there's no way you would have had the energy to do that for as long as you did. You just fast all
Totally,
day and
yeah.
you
No,
dialed in, and yeah.
it does speak well to it for sure.
Interesting. Well, I didn't get to read what, you mentioned it as the manuscript being rubbish. You were kind enough to send me the finished product, and it's absolutely wonderful. The cover's great. The stories are great. The writing's awesome. Really reminds me of, Tim Noakes kind of writing where, like in the Real Food on Trial, I believe it's called, where he writes about his own trial, where he weaves together the
Yeah.
personal stories with the science, which you do quite well. And one of the key things that really stands out that got me reflecting on my own career is what you mentioned already, the failures. I think about, me dropping out of college when I was studying architecture to get a job doing personal training, and that set me on a certain course. And then, I got demoted from a position that I had, a regional position with my company, and that, kind of made me get a nutrition certification, which sent me down the road of low carbohydrate. And like pandemic, we were unemployed and we had to start our own company. And so it's interesting to reflect on some of the failures that then lead us to the path of what we're supposed to do. And I really took that away as like a key, kind of component from your book. And I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the key inflection points that happened in your life, even before nutrition was any kind of bit on your radar as you were growing up and in high school. Can you talk about some of the key moments you decided to write about in the book?
Yeah, actually, I did a podcast with Phil Avadia a couple of days ago. In fact, I think it actually just aired today.
Yeah, I just heard it. It was good.
But I think one of the big things that we did that we didn't realize when we were just going to do one event when we first started this, but it eventually turned into multiple events. But what we became aware of very quickly was how important it was for people to be to have something to belong to and something to be proud of, and have a community, and how important and how much effort we have put into cultivating the community part of this both organizations. And I talk about my experience when I first went to high school in Rhodesia back then, which became Zimbabwe since then, and how it was a bit like everybody had to, we all had uniforms and stuff like that, and we had sports on the inter-school competitions were on the weekends. And so the first time I was in Form 1, very first year in high school, and so I was in a junior rugby side and found out that our match was in the morning, but we had to stay there the whole day and watch the senior games, and especially the first team at the end of the day in the afternoon. And I was really grumpy about that. I thought it's ridiculous that they want to make us spend our Saturday like watching rugby. And then we had that first event, and they'd set up these stands, like these bleachers along the whole length of the field, on the other side of the field opposite to the main grandstand. And the opposing team was sitting in the main grandstand because they've only got a few people because of they could bring them in busloads, right? But our entire school was there in blazers and uniform, and the seniors that were in their honors blazers and their prefect blazers and their straw boaters and everything, and they would run along the front and cheerlead these war cries and stuff that we had been forced to learn before that first match. But the other team was on the other side doing their chants and everything, but all the school buildings like right behind that, and us with these war cries just reverberating off the buildings and stuff. The sound was amazing. And I just remember getting to the end of that day and just feeling so proud of being a part of that. And I never ever complained again about having to go to these matches. And like I was saying, we literally looked forward to it. It wasn't something that we hated. And from then, I was always felt a part of something, and I was always really proud of that. And even when we went to university, that we had these what they call interfaculty. Say they had different sports, but rugby was one of them. And so our two halls of residence were considered, for that league, were considered separate faculties. So there was two men's reses, and each of us had a rugby team. And when we competed against the doctors and the engineers and the dentists and the other groups that all had their rugby teams, and the same thing, like there it wasn't compulsory to go and watch, but everybody went. And we all sat in these grandstands and again, war cries and stuff like that. And it was just, again, this pride. And I just took away from that how important it was for people to have something to be proud of and to belong to, and to be able to have a community. And so I think that down the road had a huge influence on what direction we took these organizations in when we first started.
Yeah,
when we first started them.
That theme definitely shows up. I think that story is absolutely striking. I'm glad you shared it. You also share in your book a lot more about your TBI, your traumatic brain injury, which I didn't know that much about. I mean, even hosting you before, we didn't really get too much into it. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, it was just after I'd finished finished university, 2 years compulsory military service. And it was a couple of weeks after that, I'd got out of the army and I was due to start work on a gold mine. I had a bursary from Anglo American, and one of the conditions was I had to work for them for 2 years afterwards. And there was a gold mine in Clarksdorp, which was just outside Johannesburg, that I had to go and work at for 2 years. And the weekend before, in the same town, was a triathlon, and I got into triathlons with this other friend of mine. And so we went to do this triathlon, and coming home, driving between Clarksdorp and Johannesburg, it was this open road, and we turned across the traffic to get to a gas station or something to go and get something to drink, probably. And we got T-boned, and it was like right in my door, and I just smashed my head on the we believe on the pillar, like behind the door. And I had a few other injuries and broken collarbone and other things, but the head injury was like by far the worst. I couldn't see for about 3 months. I actually ended up wearing a patch because I could see out of one eye. But if I looked with both eyes, it was just completely blurred because I could not focus the two eyes together. And people used to tell me that it was really disconcerting to talk to me because my eyes would move around independently of each other.
Oh my goodness.
Like a chameleon. And I used to think that they were making it up, that was rubbish. But actually very recently, this year, even like a few months ago, I actually found out that it really is a real thing with certain head injuries that happens to people. So I couldn't work, and during that time, I found a company to buy me out of my bursary so that I could work as an engineer and not underground in the mines. I would be able to work as an engineer in Johannesburg. And so that I had to wait until my vision came back. It was kind of conditional on obviously, like, as long as you can see again, you should. So I went for the interviews like wearing an eye patch. But and at that stage, I still had my arm in a sling because my collarbone was broken, and the two bones were like literally about half an inch apart, the two pieces. Mainly because in the beginning I couldn't feel any pain, and so I wouldn't keep it still, and so these got further and further apart. And because of the brain injury, the neurosurgeon wouldn't let the orthopedic surgeon give me an anesthetic to plate the collarbone. So I literally went to this interview with my arm in a sling and this unplated collarbone, broken collarbone, and an eye and an eye patch, so that I could at least see them when I was talking to them. And I had an interview, and I don't know, maybe they felt sorry for me, but I got the
Maybe they
job
did.
on condition that I obviously recovered enough to be able to. The neurosurgeon had kept saying that as the brain swelling went down, that this would improve, and so it did, and I started working in Joburg.
Wow.
Yeah, but the long-term effects of that were going blank and not being able to retrieve words. So I can't speak fluently. Like I have to literally look up to the right and think, or left, I forget what it is, but I'm literally trying to retrieve very simple words that are in my vocabulary, but they just don't come to me while I'm talking.
Wow.
And then, also almost happened to me a bit earlier in this recording, but like at some points, I'll just go blank. I forget completely what I was talking about. And sometimes if someone reminds me, it kind of comes back. And sometimes it just doesn't. Like it's gone.
Wow.
And I just have to live with that and move on.
Wow. And you're on stage all over the world, and you appear in all kinds of documentaries and podcasts like this. And so, yeah, you found a way to definitely overcome that.
Yeah, but I think going keto and that had a lot to do with that. Like before, I absolutely hated, like as an engineer, we would have to present our designs and stuff like that to everyone else. And I literally almost had a stroke when I had to do those things. And as I became more senior, I would make the junior guys like do my presentation for me, like present, like I say, like it's good experience for you, and then they present my design, so that I didn't have to do it. At that stage, I was mortified. If I would go blank and couldn't remember what I was saying, like in front of my peers and my boss and all of that, it was hard.
Yeah.
But once I started on this keto diet, it took me a long time to start to realize it, but because that's not what I had no idea it was going to have this benefit for me. But I just found that I was going blank less frequently. And it used to be much worse the more anxious I got, right? So obviously being up in front of my, of the room was very high stress. And so that just made everything even worse. And Georgia Eade explained to me one day when we were at dinner, like after an event in Florida, and she was saying like that it really does help with anxiety and stuff. And like recently we're coming to find that it has immense benefits for all sorts of other mental health issues as well. And so it really happened that I couldn't find a suitable MC for our first event, because obviously I was going to have to find someone. I couldn't go up on the stage, but like when I couldn't find someone, I eventually, after a while, started to think to myself, well, maybe I can do it. And that would never have occurred to me before. Literally would never have gone up on that stage before.
Amazing.
But I thought, you know what? I can do this. And I went up there and I muddled through. I almost forgot what I was saying a few times, and I struggled to find words to say what I was trying to say, but it wasn't too bad, and I got through. And it went through a couple of events before actually it happened. And it happened introducing Georgia to the stage. It was the most bizarre thing. And I had some anecdote I wanted to tell about her or something, and I just went blank. And I ran off the stage and asked her to just come up and start talking. And I started afterwards, when I went back up on the stage, I explained to people, and it's like you say, it was the very first time anybody heard that I had this issue, you know. And I said, like, okay, so if I stop and stare at you like a deer in the headlights, then please, someone in the front row, tell me what I was talking about so that I can try and pick it up again.
Wow.
But you know, but that was okay. The world didn't stop turning, and you know, and I was okay with it, and I didn't have even the next time, I didn't have the fear of that happening, even before the first time it happened. And so that's been, I think, of everything, the improvements that I've ever seen in my life, that was the most meaningful, I think, to my life, in terms of how that's improved my quality of life.
Sure.
Is just not being freaked out about that anymore, and it happening less frequently as well, which also helps.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, it takes so much courage to be able to do that. You and I kind of talked about your story on episode 532 when you appeared the first time, about how you found the ketogenic diet and started to implement it, how it immediately helped you. You had no reservations about trying it once you learned about it and researched it. And so many wonderful there's so many wonderful benefits you experienced. And we talk about these events that happen. They happen all over the world. You host several of them. You've recently partnered with Jeffrey Gerber and kind of inherited some of the conferences that he was putting on, and how that's going to look in the future is going to be very interesting. But I think a lot of us who traveled these things take it for granted that these things even happen. Nobody was really talking about metabolic health 10 years ago, or if they were, they were in their own little silos, like Georgia E doing research. Like, nobody knew about her. She didn't have a platform. And
Right.
now, a few times a year, I get to fly to a city and learn from all these people, and also intermingle, not just with the doctors, the researchers, the presenters, all these people that are doing the research, but lay people, bums like myself, who are just going to try to learn about this stuff and want to take this back and share this with our clients. And so in the book, you go into much greater detail about that very first event, especially, and how that was able to be put on. And again, we take it for granted not only how much work it is to put these events on today when everybody's expecting them to happen, like Boca that's coming up here in a week or two, but like the very first one, amazing. Can you tell us about how that even happened?
I mean, that was a circus. It really was. In the previous job we'd been working at, like, we had put on a couple of events there, and so I thought, I know how to put on an event. But turns out that the CEO, a lot of the stuff that goes on in the background and the contracts and all of that kind of stuff happened without even my knowledge. I just really, at the end of the day, we just kind of worked with some of the logistics to make the event happen on the day. But so much of it happened without my knowledge, even, that I thought I knew what I was doing, but I found out I really didn't have a clue. And that might have had something, that was, maybe it had something to do with it. I think if I had known how much of a risk it was financially, and how difficult it was, I might not have pulled the trigger. But
Oh, for
being
sure.
a little bit ignorant, it's like, how hard can it be? And I think even my closest friends, Brian Lenskes and a few others that have read the pre-launch copy, I said, like, I know three-quarters of this stuff, but I think the two biggest things that was the financial risk. So when I was thinking, I said to Pam, we're going to put 1,000 people in the room. And I was working on that assumption that we were going to have 1,000 people there. So you do the math on that, and it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to be able to afford this. But find out that it's actually really, really difficult to put 1,000 people in there, and we still never have done it. The closest we got was 800 for the virtual event that we did during COVID. But we found this hotel and ended up signing this contract. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And, I think we had committed to like 600 rooms and a minimum F&B minimum of, I don't remember what it was, but it was like, it was a lot of money. And one of the things that I didn't realize was that there was this plus plus at the end of the amount, and I didn't even know what plus plus meant. When I signed that contract, I didn't know what plus plus meant, and what it means is that it's this amount. So I thought, oh yeah, 1,000 times X, like we'll be able to pay this. But turns out it's that amount plus 25% service fee plus almost 8% sales tax. So that turns 100,000 into like 130,000, 135,000. And then we got pointed to the AV guys, and I'm thinking, okay, so a screen and a mic and a speaker, and maybe a person to run it for the 3 days. That's like, how much can it be? Now you've quoted us $60,000 for the
Oh my
3 days.
goodness.
And that's plus again, right? So it's actually $81,000 is the actual amount that you're contracting for. And by then we were finding that we had all these intermediate payments, and we weren't able to meet those because we weren't getting the 1,000 people signing up that we thought we would get. And now this realization came along that we would be on the hook for this huge amount of for the AV, and that was just AV. That wasn't even to record it. So yeah, I mean, we found ways to solve it. I don't want to give the whole book away, but we found ways to solve that, and stuff just kept happening. Like every day something else would go wrong. And at one stage, like we had this meeting with the manager, like he didn't even take us up to his office. Like he literally spoke to us standing in the lobby, saying like, we're gonna have to cancel this meeting because you're not paying your installments. And we just had a long conversation with him. I just said, we can't. I mean, all the money that we've collected, we've given to you. You're not going to give it back to us. We just can't. And somehow I convinced him that we'd find a way to pay him after the event, and he let us have it. And
Wow.
This was like maybe 2 weeks out or something. It's like 2 weeks out, and he's trying to tell us, he's called us into the hotel to say, we're going to have to cancel this event. Yeah, but it was almost, and I tell the story there of be outside in the hall. We had Dry Farm Wines there, and everybody had gone out after the last lecture, and that was where the expo was, in the foyer outside. And I finished packing up my computer and all of that stuff. And so when I went out there through the doors, it was had its full head of steam, and it was the noise was huge, and it was just humming. Like everybody was just so excited about that first day and talking about it and trying out the Dry Farm wines and everything. And I just stood there and thought, wow, Pam and I did this. And it was a proud moment.
Yeah, should be. That's amazing. And just to think about, all that effort and the effort you still put into these conferences and what the ripple effects have had. I mean, even just in my life, how meaningful they are is just absolutely wonderful. And so, yeah, congratulations on that very first one and continuing to do them. I want to talk about your upcoming event, but before we do, with the book, like you said, we don't want to give the whole thing away. And you do such a great job, not only those amazing stories, several others in the book, but also, an entire chapter about the ketogenic diet, what it is. It's so wonderful. You talk about exercise, you talk about food addiction, you talk about how you started the SMHP, which we talked about last time you were on the show. We do have some time-sensitive things as far as the book goes. So can you tell people how they can find out where to get the book, how they can support you, and of course the book launch that's coming up, I believe, on the 22nd. Is that correct?
22nd, correct. So it's going to be at 6 p.m. On the 22nd. That's 6 p.m. Eastern time. And I believe I've given you the link there that what we're trying to do is encourage people to come and join the launch webinar. So the book will go live. I'll give a short little talk about the book and that. I'm given like a minute or two. But then the publishers are actually going to explain to people how to go and get the book. The Kindle version will be enormously discounted as well to try and get, the whole idea is to try and get this book ranked so that it then, because it's ranked, it's going to appear on the bestseller lists, and it's also going to be offered to people that are looking for, if they put in searches for similar stuff, because it's ranked highly, it's going to get suggested to them. And so that's how we see this working with our idea about getting out beyond our current sphere of influence, because now people that didn't even know we exist are going to see the book. Hopefully they find it interesting enough read to get towards the end where we actually have a QR code at the end where they can scan it, and it takes them to a landing page on the SMHP site that's got basically it's just a page of links to different resources saying like, my idea, I say in the beginning and at the end, like if you've got here and you feel like you've got so much more to learn, then I've done my job. And scan this code, and now you're going to be taken to a reliable source of information where there's links to all sorts of stuff about how you can get involved with the organization, how you can learn more about metabolic health or the ketogenic diet or the accreditation process with the SMHP, so that you can become, you can have our backing in terms of being able to practice metabolic medicine. It's all there on one page. I remember Brian Lenskes, when he first got into all of this and he started teaching people about it, like he created this one page that he always used to tell me about, like that had all the useful links to all the different things that people could go and learn about what he had been telling them in his practice. And so now we've basically got a very similar thing, like all on one page is a bunch of links to everything you need to at least take the next step in terms of this journey down this rabbit hole.
That's fantastic. That's going to be an amazing resource. Yeah, we will definitely link that up in the show notes and definitely promote that.
Okay.
We also
so I think we were talking about it off air. So if they can't make that launch, then from the 22nd or the 23rd, definitely onwards, then just go to Amazon and search for Doug Reynolds' Road to Metabolic Health, and you'll find it. And that also helps us as well. Apparently, instead of giving them a link to the actual page, if the more searches that happen, the more reliable and I can't even think of another good word for it, but that Amazon ranks this because people are actually searching for me or searching for the book, and that says volumes apparently for their algorithms. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was unaware of that, but understanding how different websites and companies use their algorithms is really important. So I thank you for bringing that point up. To actually go in and type in the words "the road to metabolic health" would be very helpful for you. I think most people will be more than willing to do what it takes to help support you and support the cause. So that's
I
wonderful.
appreciate that.
And then also time sensitive is Boca 2025. We're kind of at the death here as far as signing up for it, but can you tell us about this year's event? I lament the fact that I'm a little bit closer to the East Coast, and so traveling, or West Coast, excuse me. So traveling to the East Coast is a little bit harder for me, and I'm going to have to miss this year. But a lot of my wonderful friends are going there, and yeah, can you tell us about Boca 2025 and how people can participate in that as well?
Yeah, so we're actually going to be in the hotel for this launch webinar. We will have traveled down the day before already. But it's from the 24th to the 26th of January. From a couple of years ago, we started, Tro Kalayjian actually started, he asked if we could have an entire focus day on food addiction. And so we did that, and it was actually really successful. So since then, at all our events, we've been having one day set aside to cover one particular issue or condition. And we've had cancer, and we've had mental health, and we've had type 1 diabetes. And this one coming up now is women's health. And a lot of our really staunch attendees and some of the speakers as well have been saying, like, we need to have more of a focus on this. So we've got the first day focusing on women's health, but have some pretty amazing speakers coming on the other days as well. And currently, if you go to our website, again, lowcarbusa.org, and you find it's on that homepage, you can go pretty much straight to the Boca event. And on that event page, if you click on the code, on the button that says buy your in-person or live stream ticket here, that's important. I keep forgetting to mention, like, there is a live stream version as well. If you can't make it financially, time-wise, whatever, then the live stream is the next best option. And you get to chat with Pam at the back, like, all the way through the weekend and everything. And there's like a real community, like, kind of builds up with the live stream folks that are online actually watching it live. And you don't have to watch it live. You can watch it. The videos are available to you and forever, basically. So you have access to those afterwards. And right now, there's no more. We've had a sliding scale of discounts through the year, but those are all past. But what I do think, we've created one for you before, haven't we?
I think we have, yeah. If we may have created it for the Symposium Metabolic Health in San Diego.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's in there. I'll look it up because I don't want to mess up your recording here. But I'll look it up and send it to you when we finished this recording, and you can put it in the show notes. That will get people get 20% off their basket. So if they order a CME certificate, then they get a discount on that as well. It's not just the event. And there's two. That ticket includes two really cool low carb dinners that we put on Friday and Saturday night. That we work very, very hard with the chef of the hotel to make it so that people don't have to worry about anything. They can just go and dish themselves up, and it's all going to be good,
Wow.
Unless there's allergies or stuff involved that they can check on. But we try and make sure that there's nothing really there, and most common allergies anyway, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, the San Diego event, the dinners are like an extra cost. But at this one, it's always been included in the ticket price, and I've tried to keep it that way.
That's
up till
fantastic.
now, I've been able to. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely link to that in the show notes. Hopefully, people can make it to the event online. It's always so meaningful to be there in person. If you can, it's nice to know there's a live stream, and also knowing that, if this time it's out of the question for you, San Diego is coming up. People closer to me can make it there a little bit easier. And I just have to say, Doug, not only do you run a great conference and keep everything on schedule and on point, but the idea that you guys came up with to do that one day where you specialize in one thing has been absolutely mega, mega, mega. From anybody I've ever talked to, we did a review on the SMP the symposium for metabolic health in San Diego in 2024. Every guest that I've talked to since then, we've asked them what was their favorite part, and almost universally, it was that first day where we talked about mental health, and knowing that, this year at Boca, it's going to be women's health. In the past, the day about type 1 diabetes, I've just heard amazing stories about it and how meaningful that was for a lot of people in the type 1 community. So I just have to say kudos to that. Please do not stop doing that. It's absolutely wonderful that you do that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the input. It's we got that from the first time when we did food addiction a couple of years ago with Tro, and we got such good feedback from that we thought, wow, okay, let's keep doing this going forward. So
yeah.
Maybe one day some other really good idea will come up that's even better, but until it does, we'll keep doing this for sure.
Please do. Yeah, please do. It's amazing. Yeah, and I just, again, reflecting back on San Diego this year and all the people that were able to make it, and meeting, Rashani Sanghani for the first time and her incredible presentation, and all these people doing so much amazing work in their own little corners of the globe to actually come together in the same room. And you really get that sense of collaboration, cooperation. Dr. Lori Calabresi is sitting on the same row as me. She's got just as many questions as some of the lay people, and she's taking notes. And so is Rachel. Like, all these people are learning and just basking in this energy that you were able to create. You had the courage to be able to go out and do it, create these events, write the book. It's just wonderful, all the work that you do. And it must have been a tough push at the end of last year to get this all out there, but I'm really appreciative that you did. And like I said, it's so good that you were ketogenic and had the amazing energy to be able to.
I had the stamina to be able to manage that, because you're right. Back in the day, I would have crumbled, I think.
Oh yeah, no chance. Yeah, no chance. Well, Doug, again, we understand you're very busy, so thank you very much for taking time out of your busy life a week or two before some of these amazing events that are coming up in the book launch. But for now, where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
So I was asked this the other day. I think Dougie Reynolds, I think, is Twitter, and Doug Reynolds or something on Facebook and stuff. Like, I don't even know. But what I then say is, what's more important is LowCarbUSA and the SMHP. So if you search for LowCarbUSA, one word, on any platform, you'll find it. And if you search for the SMHP, one word, you'll find the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. And this is what I do this for, to make those organizations function so that we can help more people. And it's much more important that people go there and from there's probably links that you'll find me, but yeah, LowCarbUSA and the SMHP are much more important.
Excellent. We'll link that in the show notes. Doug, you're a true inspiration. Like, seriously, I can really feel that when you say you want to get this message out to help more people, I know that's very, very genuine, and your work really shows it. So I'm just very grateful for you and everything that you've done, and your contributions to the space are so immense and, just like I said, completely inspiring. So Doug Reynolds, thank you so very much for all of your very, very hard work. Thank you for producing the book and all these amazing events. And thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show again today. We really, really appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Casey. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.